short synopsis of the film, no spoilers please.
Okay, so Banjo is about a disgruntled office worker that summons his imaginary friend by Ouija board to exact revenge.
This is your first feature, right?
That's right, yeah.
It's evident that you're wearing every single influence on your sleeve in this, especially the trauma one.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about your background with trauma?
Sure, so I first discovered trauma when I was 11 years old. I bought Toxic Avenger 2 from Blockbuster Video as an ex-rental.
At the age of 11?
Yeah, well, my mum bought it me at the age of 11, yeah. And I just loved the maniacal violence, just the ultra-violence to it. And, you know, you could tell it was shot independently. It was, you know, not cheap, but it was low budget compared to the Hollywood horror films that I kind of grew up on. And I felt like, well, if these guys can go in this direction, then maybe I could one day write a film. And I went through their back catalogue. And I emailed Lloyd one day and basically said I'm a huge trauma fan, and whenever he's in the UK, could I maybe like help out at the convention? So I met him in Leicester in 2002, you know, dressed up as a Sergeant Kabuki Man in YPD, and just, you know, developed a friendship. And then he was shooting Return to Nukem High in New York in summer 2012, and I thought, okay, this could be my, you know, this is my opportunity to probably live out my dream and actually work on a trauma film. So I emailed him saying, look, I'll do anything. And he says, yeah, you know, fly over. So flew over to New York and slept on the floor of an abandoned funeral home with like 100 other people. And that was my film school.
Were they alive or dead?
Oh, no, they were alive. They were very much alive. But yeah, so worked on Return to Nukem High as a production assistant and as a background artist and Lloyd's assistant, and it was just great just to, you know, see how different departments worked, and that then inspired me when I got back to the UK to develop a short film called Banjo, which is now a feature.
Well, I'll take it that the comedy of trauma was very important to you as well.
Yeah, definitely the comedy, and you know, I kind of grew up on British sitcoms like, you know, Bottom, Young Ones, very like Rick Mail influenced slapstick comedy, and I saw that you know, in trauma movies as well. Banjo is basically like a love letter to trauma and Frank Henlot films like Basket Case and Brain Damage, just the films that I used to rent from the video store, or my mum used to rent from the video store for me.
So how did you get it off the ground? Because
right.
Obviously your first film, you're quite young.
Yeah.
Must have been difficult.
I snapped my banjo string in London in 2011.
You did?
I did, yeah.
Well, I've actually snapped mine as well many years ago, several decades ago.
Did it inspire you to do anything creatively?
It inspired me to actually pour hydrogen peroxide on it to stop it bleeding, which it did, because it just fizzes up like sherbet.
Yeah.
So that's a good tip, people. Yeah. If you ever cut yourself, regardless of which part of your body it is, pour some hydrogen peroxide on it. It doesn't burn, it just solidifies immediately like some sherbet.
See, I wish I knew you back in 2011, you know.
We could have discussed it.
We could have discussed it, yeah.
So you broke your own banjo string?
I did, yeah. So so I broke my own banjo string, and then the next day in London, just walking around Leicester Square with tissue wrapped around my penis because I didn't go to the hospital or anything. I went to see the Darren Lynn Bousman Mother's Day remake, and I turned to my girlfriend at the time. I'm like, you know what, this might make a great idea for a fucked up horror movie. You know, if someone snaps their banjo, yada yada yada, and it kind of like developed from there. So got back home, wrote a 3-page script, and then that developed into a 15-minute short film that played Trauma Dance. And then when people saw it at Trauma Dance in 2013, they were emailing me saying, oh, you know, you're a fucked up piece of shit. And to me, that was, you know, I took that as a compliment. I'm like, if I can like garner that kind of reaction from someone, from a really, you know, amateur 15-minute short film, because it was the first thing I actually completed, it inspired me to kind of like flesh out the characters and put them in a different universe and make a feature-length script of Banjo. And that's when like the imaginary friend element came in, because as I mentioned earlier, I'm a big Rick Mail fan, you know, grew up on Bottom, and one of the films I watched as a kid was Drop Dead Fred. So I mean, I guess the best way to describe Banjo is Drop Dead Fred, the horror movie. From there, we thought we'd go with Kickstarter, you know, crowdfunding. So I thought I'd ask for $5,000. So the idea was, okay, I'll ask for $5,000 and I can work as much overtime as I can in my technical support job, and I can make a film on $10,000. But then, you know, that then turned to 15 and then 20, and you know, next minute I'm like maxing out credit cards and taking out loans because the film growing and growing and growing.
Because what I found with, especially first-time film directors, because the technology is so accessible. They think you just have to grab a camera and point it. Wrong.
Yep.
A lot of them forget about atmosphere and lighting, and it all just comes out really flat, like it's been shot in a bright office. Throughout the film, start to finish, yours isn't like that. You've got depth to it.
Thank you. Yeah, and end of the day as well, story is king. I mean, so advice I could give any other like micro-budget independent filmmakers is, you know, story is king. You know, learn how to write a script. The story is the most important part. It doesn't really matter what you shoot on, but if you got heart to the story, to me as an audience member, because I've been coming to FrightFest now for 5 years. I came to FrightFest 5 years ago, and I've come here now 5 years later with my own film. It's like I can die now, because to me the biggest dream is to have you film at FrightFest. But yeah, just focus on the story, because, you know, genre nuts like myself, that's all, you know, we really care about. So it can be done on maybe $5 grand, it could be done on 5 million. As long as, you know, the story's earnest and, you know, the audience members can feel for the characters. To me, that's the most important aspect of a horror film.
Yeah, I agree. It's like some of them look fantastic, but the stories are rubbish, so it doesn't work. Actors are important as well.
I agree, and I was very lucky with Banjo. Like I mentioned earlier, I had James Hammer Morton, who played Pelser, and Damien Mortar, who directed a movie called Book of the Dead Esco Trilogy. He works for Safe House Pictures. He played the imaginary friend Ronnie, and Ronnie to me is like my version of Funny Man, which is like a mid-90s horror film, the Trickster from Brain Scan, and Freddy Krueger, you know, rolled into one. You know, he's like my anti-hero in Banjo. With Damien, he didn't just play Ronnie. He was actually the DOP, and he edited the film. And, you know, he was DOPing in that heavy makeup, and, you know, the performance from him is just, you know, spectacular.
So, seeing how it was inspired by a sexual incident, is that why so much comedy is sexual? And it's quite a comedy moment, actually. I thought it was really funny when it happened to me.
Yeah,
it was scary, but it was funny at the same time. It's like, what the hell's gone on here?
Yeah, I mean...
Is that why there's so much actual sexual content to the humour throughout the film? Because it's born of a sexual incident?
Yeah, without doubt. You know, I mean... when it happened to me, I mean, I didn't know it happened until like maybe 15, 20 minutes, you know, during the evening, and I'm still like bleeding inside.
Oh, you didn't feel it happen?
Oh no, it felt like an internal...
Oh, mine went bang.
Really?
No. I think it's awesome that such an incident should end up informing the film.
It's
you know, the fact that you then go and make a film about it. So, have you got any plans for the next one?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to make a franchise out of Banjo. You know, I mean, I've got an idea for Banjo 2, you know, a Banjo 3, you know, a Christmas movie maybe. But because I kind of grew up as a video shop kid. My mum used to rent me films all the time, so I was into the Puppet Master franchise by Full Moon, or the Child's Play franchise, or, you know, the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. And I love, you know, films that have continuation of characters. So yeah, I'd love to make a sequel of Banjo sometime. But currently I'm writing a film called Parents' Evening, which is best described like Mean Girls meets I Spit on Your Grave. So it's kind of like the first ever rape revenge / black comedy, but it's more of a throwback to films like Heathers and Jawbreaker. So I'm kind of writing that right now.